Call this regular workshop meeting of Jacksonville City Council to order. Council, you've got a copy of the proposed agenda for tonight's meeting at your places. And we have also on here, we have some adoption. We have the agenda, plus we have consent items and minutes from the February 18, 2025 regular meeting. Put it all in one motion.
I approve to adopt the proposed agenda with the adopted minutes and consent items as presented.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed. Come on down. The first discussion item for this evening will be the electronic payment processing. So Brenda, will you present that item?
Good evening. Recently, well, not too long ago, I was here to briefly discuss credit card process and kind of talk about the ERP implementation process and how we're currently going through the process of reviewing some of our business processes, our customer portals, the different payment options, electronic billing, and all of that. And a large part of that involves our payment processors and the convenience fees. Convenience fees have been discussed a couple of times throughout the years as far as the increased cost and if there's any potential to bill them, pass them on to the customer, or continue to absorb those as we have been doing. So our payment processing fees currently are transaction-based. There is a discount fee for utility bills. You may remember that we are charged a flat rate for utility bills, and then it's percentage based on anything that's non-utility. And there are maximum transaction limits, and those fees include, we pay one processor now, but within those fees, they're collected merchant fees, gateway fees, there's fees for PCI compliance. It's all built into that, which is why there's such a large financial impact on our budget every year. Our FY25 budget was about $336,000 for credit card fees, which I do think that we will meet or exceed that amount. And then you can see throughout the years how we've gone, it's just grown exponentially. There's a large increase in our volume of payments as more people shift to those methods. And then, of course, the ones that are transaction-based, as our rates go up and prices increase, those fees increase as well. This is our current rate structure. Last time I was here, it was a little bit higher, but we were able to renegotiate with the credit card processor throughout going through this implementation. And we are paying 2.75% currently for anything non-utility. It's down from, I think we were at 3.18 previously. Our utility payments are $1.65 per transaction now, which they reduced from, I think, $1.76. So we got a little bit of a discount there. Our e-checks remain 75 cents. So that's still the most cost-effective method of payment. The fees are in $1,500 increments. So that means if you go online and pay a utility bill, it's $3,000. We get charged the $1.65 twice. It's only per $1,500. And then there's a maximum transaction of $25,000. As part of this renegotiation with our credit card processor, they have agreed to waive all of our implementation fees for the ERP, which is good. There's quite a bit of cost savings there because it is expensive to get started with a new provider and have all the interfaces and all of that. So as we talk about moving to a convenience fee model, this would be the proposed rate structure. The fee would, on the non-utility side, would remain the same that it is for us, the 2.75% passed on to the customer. The non-utility e-check, 75 cents, and then the flat fees, it's still $1,500 increments with a maximum transaction of $25,000. So you can pay $25,000 and then you can go and make a second payment for $25,000, but you just can't pay more than $25,000 in one payment. It is important to note that with the convenience fee model, you cannot charge a convenience fee on in-person payments, and that is not the payment processor. That's a rule that is set by Visa and MasterCard. I know there's been some question about, well, some places you go in person and, you're charged a convenience fee. But for us, for utility, we are not, as part of our agreement with Visa and MasterCard, we're not allowed to do that. So that's one note about the in-person payments. So if we choose to take a payment in person, we cannot charge a convenience fee for that. So even if we have the convenience fee, even if we adopt a convenience fee model, if someone comes in and pays with a credit card and we take the payment, then they're going to charge us the fee. So when I was here before, we had not really gone through negotiations with the vendor. We were a little bit unsure about what those rates would look like for the customers if we were to pass it on. We weren't sure of all of the, different pieces of it. It is very complicated, as I talked about before. I try to make it as simple as possible, but you can really go down into a rabbit hole with some of the different scenarios. But the point of tonight is to come to you with a recommendation how staff feels would be a good way to move forward as we prepare for the budget and trying to finalize the budget and the fee schedule, as well as keeping the ERP in mind that we're trying to go live July 1st, so we're sort of trying to work out everything. Our recommendation at this time, because of the complexities of some of the in-person payments, we recommend continue the current practice of including the fees for the utility payments in the rate model. The reason for this is that we already set the rates based on that, so really those fees are already being passed to the customers. And if we move away from that and we charge the fee directly to the consumer, they will pay more. So we decided at this time the customer's paying, so let's just, it'd be in the best interest of them to leave the rate how it is. We do recommend passing the convenience fee to the non-utility customers. The reason for that is currently none of those fees are built into any of the rates for those customers. It's a lot of building permits, occupancy tax, a lot of our larger transactions, and the rate remains the same for them as it does for us. And they still would have the option of the e-checks at 75 cents, so we could still encourage that. But again, the one thing that the one part that I think is not the best is that we would not be able to accept those in-person payments. As far as occupancy tax and building permits, I spoke with Ryan briefly. Most people are not coming into the office to pay with credit cards, so we don't really think it will be an issue for that. We do have some other types of payments, fingerprints, recreation payments, and recreation is sort of out, with its own payment processor right now, and we're trying to work through that. We've had some challenges with communication with that vendor, but those are more likely to be the people that are affected by that in-person payment acceptance. Now, they would still be able to pay by phone, go online and pay all of those things. They just can't pay in the office with the credit card.
So how often, so somebody coming in to pay some sort of a recreation fee, sign their kid up for some work, and they don't use checks. The younger folks don't use checks very often. So we're going to turn them away.
They would either, yes, if we went to this method, and again, recreation is not part of this yet because they're a separate vendor, so they would not be affected by this. But the hope would be that, at some point we would have them all in the same process or treating all of the customers the same.
When that time comes, could they not have a laptop or an iPad there available for people to log on and pay online should they choose to?
Yes, they could.
That would circumvent the problem. It would take a little more time, but at least they would not have to leave without finishing the process.
Yeah, what we're seeing now is when someone comes in and they want to register a kid for a program, we take the registration, we tell them we can take a hard copy, you can pay that online, but we forward them over online. A lot of people do that right there with their phone, but as your point is, we would turn them away from, we don't accept that payment. They would handle that on their phone, and then they would come back in to pick up any kind of paperwork they would need after the fact. You are correct.
Okay, I just didn't think it was good customer customer service to just turn them away just because of that.
Yeah, and I think we could still, again, recreation is not really, I wanted to mention that because I know that that is a group of customers that are more likely to pay in person than building permit, so I didn't want to bring it up at all. But we're just having challenges working with their vendor right now. So I think the idea was to get everyone back on the same system, so we would have to come up with some ways for them to do that. But I think having an iPad or something there where they could pay online, and I don't know, because we don't have that data from their vendor, I don't know how many people right now are swiping versus how many pay are electronic, so those are just some challenges we would have to work through with them. And of course, a lot of communication leading up to that point.
I can see on somebody coming in paying a building permit and wanting to, and it's big, you're talking big dollars, but on a recreation thing, you're not talking a lot of money. I don't know what registration fees are, $35, $50, something like that for after-school programs or signing up for a recreation program. Why couldn't we pass that on to them and still accept a card of some sort?
We could. I mean, we could, recreation, again, because they're not part of this current agreement, we could leave them out. We pay, I do know, because they are a separate vendor, so I know that we're spending about $20,000 a year in credit card fees for recreation. So we could, recreation could revisit their fees and increase the fees to cover that.
I could see, when you're talking about 2.75% of the total amount for a building permit, or somebody coming in and paying a tap fee or a use fee, those could be pretty expensive. But $35, $50 and passing at 2.75%, I think that's reasonable. That'd be my recommendation.
Yeah, that's what we talked about. You see a lot of stores now and restaurants that goes ahead and put that on the checkout and say this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that'll come down to this vendor. As soon as we can have the same conversation with this vendor that we've had on the others, then we'll be able to see if we can have that as an option and how it works.
Right.
But the other model is, just like Ms. Edwards says, if you have a workstation there that's inside of the office too, that gives us that flexibility. It's not the same as what you're saying, but if we can handle it, we'll definitely implement it.
I just like the personal service, the service to the citizens. You do it all at one time rather than trying to figure out some workaround. So.
You'll see, if there's anything different on the recreation fees, you'll see that highlighted in the fee schedule. So you'll see all these changes in the fee schedule. Obviously, they'll be highlighted in red when we give that to you in the budget book. But on this area, we'll go back and revisit that when we get the books out and show you what that negotiation looks like and highlight that number, whether we just put it in bold. We'll make sure to revisit it with the proposal before it's implemented.
Yes, and again, recreation, their software really dictates their credit card processing and their vendor fees. So we can't, they can't even just switch.
You're not quite ready to bring them on to the new systems yet, whatever.
No, because they're not part of the ERP implementation. Okay. They're going to maintain their recreation software that they have. And because we've not had much luck communicating with the vendors involved, we don't know yet. This may be the only credit card processor that they use, and that's the only one that you can use, and that might be the rate. There just may not be options there. But I just know that going into it, we had talked about sort of having everyone on the same system, at least as far as the fees that were being charged. I do want to point out that we don't take many payments in the office, but it would be the same situation in utility billing, just so that you are aware that if someone were to come in to pay for fingerprints and they were to use their card, it would be the same situation. They would need to either go online or pay over the phone. we wouldn't be able to take that in-person payment. Now, we don't have a lot of those, but I just want to put that out there as a possibility.
What about taxi guys, when they come in, taxi cabs, they would have same issues and it's okay.
Now, the other option, I mean, you can, like I said, you can still take that payment and the city can absorb the fee, but then you're sort of then driving people back into coming in and paying because the city's going to absorb the fee. So that's why a lot of places just don't accept the in-person cards.
And of course, I'm old enough to remember when we tried to drive everybody to the cards.
Right. Right. It seems like we were good at doing that, but
Yeah,
now
you did a
there's
great job.
there's another side to that. So that's sort of where we are now, is not recreation fees, not doing anything with that, but just moving forward, preparing the budget and the fee schedule with the plan to continue what we're doing with the utility payments, not charge a fee for that, and then pass the convenience fee to the non-utilities.
Once we implement it, then you'll start getting feedback next fiscal year on how is it accepted by the development community or the taxi cabs or the fingerprints or on and on and on. There's all kinds of non-utility customers we have.
Right, and we did try to think through each of those groups. I mean, we have a lot of, there's home loans, there's a couple of those. I mean, there's just a lot of various customers, and we did try to think through, and we actually did say, no matter, sometimes this is one of those decisions that no matter what you do, there's kind of pitfalls to each one, but we can definitely revisit it at any time.
$360,000 a year.
And rising.
Huh?
And rising.
And rising.
Yes, and as the volume, I mean, even on the utility side, as we continue, rates increase and the volume increases, the number of people drive more towards the electronic payments, and the rates will continue to go up, so.
I'm not against charging the recreation customers the convenience fees. I want to make sure that they can take care of it one stop rather than have to come back.
Absolutely.
A lot of them some of them rely on public transportation, whatever. I mean, there's a lot of that goes on, and I just think it'd be inconvenient, so.
We will do our best to minimize
We'll
that.
just figure out how to allow for that kind of payment. And that.
Yeah, accommodate it at the time of interaction.
No, I think that's a good point. We have to be sensitive to that, and especially for small, transactions like that.
Although I'm surprised, $20,000 just from the recreation side fees. Woo.
Yeah, they've come to a point where they're real numbers.
That's a
They're
real
not
number.
pennies. If
Yeah,
you think
real number.
from Sabrina's last presentation, some of those numbers over a 5-6 year period have grown from 4 digits to 6 digits. It's astronomical to see that. It's about like how you buy cell phones, from free to now.
It was just about cover your amended pay scale.
That's right. It's a good point, Mayor.
For those who remember, when we first implemented E-Plan, we added a technology fee for building
Yeah.
permits and that. And that was a way that we end up offsetting, some of the costs. Yeah.
We'll figure it out. We'll white paper this one, Mayor, so that when you get the budget book, we'll go back over it and revisit it so that we fine tune it the right way that council wants it before we're asking you to consider it.
Okay. Thank you, Sabrina.
Thank you, ma'am.
Chief Tallman.
Yes, sir.
Chief Tallman's going to present about the,
He's going to tell us how we can save another $300,000.
they don't, 300,000 is a drop in the bucket.
We're going to take that save. If I could, I would.
Pays for the tires.
They'll tell us where we can spend that $300,000.
I was working with him a little earlier, telling him to do the good news, bad news scenario.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council, for the lead-in. Obviously, the clicker's working tonight, and I'm off to a better start than I was last time. But in preparation for the FY26 budget, one of our requests is a new engine pumper that we need to replace down the road. And we wanted to talk about that along with the apparatus replacement program that we presented about 6 months ago back in September. While doing these things, we look at two things right from the get-go. That's our mission statement, to provide excellent customer service through prevention, readiness, and response to the threats in the lives of the people we serve. And we also look at the council budget goals. And in those goals, we saw several times about service delivery, being effective, being economical, being efficient. And another thing that was in there too, in those council goals too, was to provide the safety and security of the city of Jacksonville. That's why that's our number one bullet point. That's our mission. That's why we're here. It's fire protection, it's fire prevention, fire education, it's the first responder calls, it's the EMS. It's whatever comes in that we have to take care of. Another thing of importance is the safe, reliable, and similar apparatus. It's the safety of our personnel. It's not just them, it's also the people that we share the road with. They have to work off this truck. They have to work at night. They have to work in dangerous conditions. They need the extra lighting. It was lit up well. It's ergonomic. They can deploy their resources in a safer manner. And it's also reliable. This equipment and the equipment on it is expected to operate 24/7, 365. It never gets a day off. And they have to be similar too. We have people that, because of staffing, people on leave, that firefighters and drivers have to travel. So we like to keep these apparatus the same with the same layouts. So when it goes time to deploy a piece of equipment or grab something or drive it, you're familiar with it and you know where it is. I talk about it all the time to our crowd, that seconds matter. When the alarm bell goes off, those are no longer our seconds. Those seconds belong to the customer. So that familiar apparatus is extremely important to us. Strategic budgeting. I wish I could say it, these things are expensive. And we have to plan out these purchases as we go along. This fiscal year, we had to replace our air packs. It's not just apparatus that we have to replace. You take at what happened with Station 4. We were in a good spot. The county wanted to buy Station 4 from us. We were able to pivot, make a quick transition, and get that station done and completed. So we were fortunate because of the strategic budgeting of the past, we were able to do that. And then compliance and innovation. There's technology that's coming out all the time. You talk about safety, but the camera systems on these, the roll protection on these new apparatus. Another thing that we talk about is the clean cab concept. That's one of the things that we did with Engine 3 and cancer prevention in the fire service. The exposure to cancer and that kind of stuff does not stop when they put the fire out. They carry it back to the trucks with them. They're exposed to it. So these new cabs, it gives us a better way to clean them, to make sure that they're deconned, that we get rid of these contaminants when they're riding around on it at other times. That's another good thing about the air packs we purchased. They can be deconned better too. And also we need a serviceable reserve fleet. We don't get rid of them when they go off the front line. We still use them as reserves. These aging apparatus, it's harder to get parts. Engine 5, our newest reserve, it's going to be out of service for several months because we can't get a radiator for it. Yes, sir. It's already been out of service for a month, and we're going to have to wait another couple months to get a radiator for it. And this is something that our mechanics finding. They don't stock stuff like they used to, especially a lot of these specialty parts. Engine 7 was in service today, while Engine 1 got new tires put on it and a new seat belt installed. When Mr. Bittner was the city manager, he approved the purchase for Engine 7. It's a 1994 truck that we still use, and they had to get on it today. As a matter of fact, there were several hours a day I didn't have a reserve, so if something went down, we'd have to figure out some kind of other solution to that problem. The increasing service demand. I know the population of the city of Jacksonville hasn't changed much, but our call volume and the requests for us continue to rise. If you look, the vineyard's is starting to build up. There's going to start to be houses going in there. And then some of the satellite annexations is taking place across the city. It looks like there's some future growth that will increase that service demand. Y'all have heard me talk about this before too, is the extended manufacture times. It used to take a year. Now we're looking at 3 to 4 years. And that's an industry-wide time that's taking place with the building of these trucks. Station 4, we cleared a lot and built a brand-new first-class fire station in less than 2 years. It takes twice as long to get a fire engine. The limited manufacturers have something to do with that. Some of these smaller units have been bought up by these bigger corporations. And also some of the universal components that they use in some of these trucks. There's only so many diesel engine manufacturers that they can choose from, and also the pumps that go into them as well. There's only really 3 major manufacturers of the pumps that go in these trucks. And the rising costs, they just seem to go up exponentially every year. Some of our recent replacements, I was just talking with Mr. Ward about that, engine 3 that we ordered in 2020 in November. We purchased that for $650,000, and it went into service in December of 2021. Ladder 1 that we talked about here will be a 2027 Pierce. We ordered it last December, which it spec'd out at $2.1 million. Now, we were fortunate with the state that we were able to get a grant and cover the cost of that ladder, but we won't get it here and in service till December of 2027, and that's an estimate. And then the apparatus replacement plan that we talked about on September of 2024. Here's the schedule that we proposed. Like I said, we looked at that service delivery standard, our mission statement, council's goals. We also looked at NFPA, their recommendation. They say frontline, 5 years as a reserve. We're looking more to that 15 to 20-year window in this replacement schedule for these apparatus. And ours have anywhere from a probably 10 to 15-year reserve. If you look at engine 1 with the manufacture times, it's a 2011. If we were able to order it for FY26, we would not receive it until 2029. Engine 1 would be 18 years old. You look at the mileage on some of these vehicles, and they're averaging anywhere to 6,000 to 10,000 miles a year, and we're expecting that to increase as well. Those are all things that we looked at when we look at these plans. Now, this is fluid. You know, there's always a chance for those manufacture times to come back down when some of the demand on some of these apparatus maybe eases up, and hopefully the prices will stabilize. I wish I could say that, but we're forecasting that they're going to continue to rise. It also has our rescue Quint 4 engine 2 and engine 3, which we just replaced, but we're still forecasting that out. What are we talking about replacing is our fire engine pumper. That's engine 3. Most people see a shiny fire truck going down the road, but there's a lot more to it than that. There's the cab that houses our people, a lot of our specialized equipment, a lot of our sensitive equipment, our cameras, our computers, our gas detectors and things like that have to stay charged in and plugged and are very sensitive. In the middle, you'll see the pump panel, and it's the booster tank. That's what moves the water around. That's where they control all that, and we spec out, at a minimum on all our trucks, a 1,500 GPM pump and a 500-gallon tank. We're lucky that we have a robust water system in the city of Jacksonville, so we can rely on those hydrants, but that 500 gallons gives us some firefighting capabilities for a few minutes until we can get that water supply established. And then you look at the back, and that's the compartments in the hose bed. So that's where we store all the other equipment and the fire hoses that we use. We talked about that consistency, that things are in the same place. They're stored in the same place with the same type of equipment. We pull off the first-in engine, so we send, depending on the type of call, we send multiple units in. So we try to pull everything off that first engine in case somebody has to break to go something else. They're not trying to find equipment to scramble and leave. So that consistency is extremely important. And the interoperability, talked about the 1,500 GPM pump in those tanks. With that minimum, if we were to go down to a smaller size pump, you would lose the effectiveness of your other apparatus, because there's times that these trucks have to pump in tandem. We had a fire a couple months ago that we actually had to take one of our engines and pump into our ladder truck. So if we had a smaller type pump, the ladder wouldn't have been able to function at its full capability if it was smaller like that. So it would have been less effective. This happens because of just hydrant layout, how hoses are laid out, or just the scene layout. So it can get extremely complicated extremely fast. Our FY budget request is the replacement of Engine 1, which is a 2011 Rosenbauer. It's an exact carbon copy of Engine 3 that I just showed on the picture. That truck was designed by a diverse group of our personnel. It was men, it was women, it was firefighters, it was engineers, it was captains, it was officers. That was the truck that they designed. And we are extremely satisfied with the reliability, how effective it is, and how good of a firefighting engine it is. It has really been a benefit to this department and our personnel. The bad news is it was $650,000 in 2020. It's $1.18 million, the best estimate if we were to order it in 2026. It's gone up over $500,000 in that 5 years. And you're seeing that across the board, the $1 million plus for those spec'd out custom fire engines. The expected build time is still that 4-year window, that 42 to 45 months. And we hope to get it in service sometime in 2029. We still continue to look at cost savings. We still explore the possibility of the grants. Like we said, we were able to get a grant from the state that fully paid for Ladder 1. And it actually left us a little bit of money because we prepaid it to outfit the truck as well. So that's allowed in that grant. We looked at some numbers from the AFG grant. Over 8,000 fire departments applied for the AFG grant. That's an extremely competitive grant. We looked at the refurb. Those are anywhere from $500,000 for an engine to $750,000 for a ladder. But that doesn't touch the chassis. It doesn't touch the suspension. It doesn't touch any of the electrical. Basically, it's just the body, paint, and the motor. We also, another thing that we explored into was stock units. These apparatus companies kind of have a cookie cutter apparatus that they'll produce. The problem is it's limited selections. Typically they're smaller pumps, smaller capacity pumps, and they're typically bigger booster tanks. You don't think a booster tank, something like that matters. You think more water is better. But when you increase the size of that booster tank, it takes away from your other storage, your other compartments, and then it's more added weight to the truck with the weight of the water. It does save about 18 months with the time frame, but right now we're comfortable with what we've spec'd and the time frame as it comes to that plan. The estimated cost of those are about $850,000. So there's some savings there, but it's really not that much. And then the fact that we really don't control the compartment layout and where we can put things and the amount of hose we carry, the discharges, the pump sizes, and all that kind of stuff like that is, we're looking to pull the lever on the slot machine and hit 3 cherries when it comes to these stock units. You know, we talked about the pump panel that we have. We like a top-mounted pump. We talk about safety. That gets our driver up off the ground where they're not standing in the street. It also gives them a view of the scene that they're on. They can kind of help keep an eye on what's going on around them. And it also turns them into a firefighter, too, as well, if it's needed. We put a deck gun on top of our trucks that can flow up to 1,000 gallons a minute so they can actually pump the truck and be a firefighter at the same time. So that's the reason why we like that top mount pump. Most of the thing you'll find on those stock units is just a side mount pump. The funding strategy, like we talked about back in September, is we like to utilize the property tax that we get from the county. I believe last year was, what, about $1.3 million that we received in July between the 1st and the 30th of that 3-cent allocation. We'll continue to explore grant opportunities to help ease the burden. And those strategic purchases also allow us for those prepaid discounts. I should have mentioned it back there. Am I allowed to go back? That $1.18 million, if we were to prepay that like we did on Ladder 1, we would save about $175,000. Now, you can put any type of prepayment amount you want on it. It just graduates or declines based on how much you put down. We were able to save $300,000 because we prepaid Ladder 1. That brought the cost down from $2.1 million to $1.8 million. So that allows us to get some of the equipment to outfit Ladder 1. So that's all I have, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Mayor, part of what we'll have with the, as Chief pointed out, our goal is to get these plans to council so that when we present it, this is all part of that plan. I think the best part of the presentation is looking at the options and then determining the revenue stream that pays for the items and then putting them in the right time. So one of the things that you're going to see, whether that comes in as the white paper with the plan for this year or that's part of next year's plan, you're going to see this plan come up inside of your budget book that says, these are the apparatus, it's the spreadsheet you've got there, and this is where it's at. I was thinking we would probably just have Mr. Bittner work on that since it worked on the one engine real well, and just send it on over, and if you could get us another unit at that $600,000, we'd appreciate it. But there's really the only strategy is to start thinking ahead, and I think the best way is if we're going to get savings from the prepay option, I think we just have to be aggressive. And we're going to have to go a couple of times. Doesn't matter if it's a stock unit or it's a custom unit. Still, if they're going to give us a prepayment option, we're going to have to consider it because $300,000 per vehicle gives us another vehicle. And these are big purchases that we're looking at. We didn't really get that option on the SCBA's. It's not really a prepayment option. Pay us, you're going to get them. But the trucks may give us a little something different. It's tough when you don't get them for 46 months. Real challenging. We can build a station in half the time as a vehicle. It's ridiculous.
Chief Tolman, what is the warranty on these new apparatus trucks?
Most of the time, and what we spec out in the company we get it from is a year, bumper to bumper. Now, there's some components of it, like the tanks on them have a lifetime guarantee, but it's typically a 1-year warranty on them.
1 year.
Yes, ma'am.
Also a huge challenge that's what we're getting.
So even
Maybe
if
we should buy a Kia.
probably better. I was about to say, even when the expectation of these apparatuses may be delayed, it's still 1 year. It's not extended.
Yes, ma'am, it's still 1 year. Now, we can talk to the rep and explore if there's a extended warranty that you might be able to purchase as part of it.
Are you saying one year from the time you purchase or 1 year from the time it's delivered?
1 year from the time it's delivered. So if it takes a little bit longer for the truck to be built, is it still going to be that 1 year? Or is that?
It's from the day we take delivery.
The only other factor, Mayor, that we'll add is, part of our operational discussions are how do we respond to some of these calls? You saw a lot of the apparatus. I think there's a couple that are in the 90,000. There's a 70,000. There's a 50,000 based on how long we've had them. But we look at how that rotation works on different service calls, and we're trying to maximize that utility at all time. The challenge there is personnel numbers as well. So when you're looking at, do you increase personnel to make sure that you can respond with a different apparatus instead of rolling a larger apparatus, there's a cost benefit there. Increasing staffing levels or having more of those trucks that are capable to work whenever they need to roll out. So
How many people have to be on the ladder truck when it rolls?
We put 2 on it.
Just 2?
Yes, sir.
About the pumper?
3 to 4.
And that's kind of what's the requirement? I mean, who requires that? Is that OSHA or is that?
No, we have, there's an NFP recommendation for the staffing levels. According to that, our ladder is understaffed. They typically put 3 to 4, we put 2 on ours. But we keep that 3 to 4 on the engine based on those recommendations.
And the federal government, particularly for cities that is adjacent to military installations, there's no type of intergovernment agreement that if a military installation, fire department, and a municipality were to come together as a joint effort, there's no type of military funding to help with supplies in which the military installation could help loan out vehicles, or a vehicle could be purchased for a municipality because of that agreement between the military installation in that city for the quality of life for those military individuals as well as civilians.
Ma'am, I haven't explored that option. That's something I can look into, but I do know that we have automatic aid agreements with the base where they actually come out and assist us on calls, and we've increased what we respond to on the base to assist them. I know there's been some times where we've been basically out of reserves, and they've been out of reserves. They can't borrow an apparatus from us, and we can't borrow an apparatus from them if it was needed. But we can still provide that response as an automatic aid agreement. You know,
They can back us up with their equipment.
Right.
Right.
But we can't really share.
But not, we can't, operate their equipment. They can't operate ours. But we do have good arrangements with the base. In matter of fact, we respond to some locations on the base first because we can get there quicker, and vice versa. And the base responds to some of our locations first because they can get there quicker. So I mean, that's excellent.
Who's the base use as a supplier?
It's a Pierce.
Pierce?
Yes, sir. They have a federal spec that they have to utilize.
It'd be interesting, though. That's a good point, Dr. Washington. You talk about these intergovernmental service agreements to see if this has come up as an opportunity for host cities to partner a little differently, since they have their own fire departments. Maybe that's part of the reason why we wouldn't have those type of IGSAs. But it's at least something that we could have a little more dialogue in. The one thing that they definitely give us is they give us that support, which is phenomenal having them here to know that they can roll out on any call that we're on. I mean, that's a huge value add because it gives us another agency that's close to us, that's manned instead of just a simple volunteer agency.
Yeah, they're all certified, trained to the state level.
There's still a lot to be investigated about IGSAs. It's a whole change in culture, certainly from the military side, on how they can obtain services with the authority of an IGSA. When you look at some areas in public safety, for example, some communities, the civilian community actually runs the 911 or handles the 911 calls for the military bases and that. So you're starting to see, instead of it having to be on the base and having to be in the community, you're seeing a regional solution for some of it, which, when you look at it, it's the most cost-effective way to do it. And the same thing, just talking with the county, as the county gets more into firefighting, because of volunteer fire departments, you really now need to do strategic planning, not just where those fire departments are, but where the need is in the county, and figure out who's best to respond to what areas. An excellent example with what we've got now is the donut hole. Technically, that's not in the city limits. It's the county's responsibility, but we respond because it makes sense. There's a lot of that we can hopefully grow into.
And we're actively having those IGSA conversations now, just like what we have with transportation with the signal lights. We're working on those, so I don't think it hurts us to try and dialogue a little more based on the interaction that we have. So we'll definitely look into that. When you think about it, it's that, I don't know if that's the phrasing, but it's an impact funding source based on how we interact as partners. So
Makes everybody's money go further
that's right.
when we can do that.
I was just thinking if there wasn't like an alternative, like with the CDEP program for certain infrastructure, if it was something more specific, because, you know, the majority of the responses that our department go to really isn't mostly fire, it's more emergency.
Yes, ma'am.
And computer technology is driving up the costs, and patients, their healthcare needs are becoming more complex. And you have to have that technology in order to deliver that 21st century healthcare to give them a fighting chance to live.
That's why, like the trauma center thing, that's a great thing for the area, to have that investment available to people that aren't in the military. You know, there's a big investment, lots of technology.
Yeah, another thing a non-host city's not going to have access to that we have that makes it a huge impact for how we're serving our citizens.
Any other questions? Chief Tallman? We good?
You'll see this in the very near future, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Thank y'all.
Thanks, sir.
Number 8 says small business revolving loan fund. Josh, you will take care of it.
Sir, thanks, Mayor. We've talked to council about the Small Business Revolving Loan Fund, and council has actually given us the go-ahead to work with JOED to develop this program. Based on the discussions we've had before, we looked at council goals to say, what are we trying to do? You'll see a couple of goals here where we're trying to focus on economic development. We're trying to redevelop downtown. Those are council goals. And then when we looked at the economic development policy that council adopted, the first thing is partner with agencies here that are doing the work in the community. And the second part of that is create some programs that can strengthen the assistance to our small businesses. So if you look at those three things, what came to mind is we have a strong partner, that's JOED. We have a targeted area, that's downtown, and we have a need, and that's small business development. So we presented this to council and said, can we start a small business revolving loan program that focuses on downtown? So we have a couple of programs now that Tracy's working on in terms of business development that will help, by bringing in a partner, they will help our small businesses work on mentorship, networking, certifications, contracting, business plan development, skill development. We've gone through that process, and we are welcoming Genesis Block into our team as a partner who is providing services in the community, and they'll now be working with us hand in hand. And we would like to take this revolving loan fund into that next level so that Genesis Block has access to another program that they can tie these two entities together. So we have Genesis Block and JOED working together to distribute funds that are appropriated by City Council into our small business development program. The contract terms that you have included in your agenda, which we're not asking for action today, I've got a couple questions to ask. Contract terms, $50,000 initial investment, eligible for downtown entrepreneurship because we're focusing on downtown. We have a map that we're going to show you, also was in your agenda packet. What we would do is, once we have the agreement in place, council would give us the ability to go through the policies, procedures, and those control mechanisms. We would set that up through our office, and then we would have annual audit and financial statements required. The termination is a standardized termination that we've gone back through so that either JOED or the city can terminate that within 90 days. Our goal is to be able to carry this program forward. The challenge is if at some point JOED says, you know, this is more cumbersome for us to maintain and to manage, maybe then they need to come back to us to talk about the parameters in the contract. What we're really trying to do is get this started so we can have the program for the first year, and then like Mr. Warden said earlier on a different item, then come back and revisit it after the year to see how effective it's working. One of the things that will put inside of our procedures are the performance metrics. We want to be able to deliver metrics to the council to say, this is working, this is not working. If it's not working, then we're not going to recommend coming back and extending the program. If it is working, more than likely, we're going to pull together our team to say, council, what else can we do to either keep this program focused downtown for longer or to put it out into the rest of town? Right now, Joed has a small business revolving loan fund that goes to Onslow County as a whole, and so they utilize any of those funds. This target, as we've gone over before, focuses just in Jacksonville and just in downtown. So these metrics will all be included in our procedures for how we'll carry out the program. We're going to look at how we're going to have an impact on number of employers and how much employment in downtown. Some of those external measures are going to have a tax-based impact. They're not going to be great in a downtown area yet unless we have new construction. What our first focus is working on existing buildings. So on the tax structure ad valorem side, you may not see a lot of impact in the first few years. What you could see is the sales tax impact. Again, smaller to start out, but it's got to start somewhere to grow to that point. And then the other side is going to be just the success stories that we hear. There are already success stories in downtown. Our ability to grow and have more of those stories will be a true metric for the overall impact by this program. So the first question is, what you see on the screen here, everything in green is what we've defined on a staff level as downtown Jacksonville area that's an impact. This is not just Court Street, New Bridge Street. This goes to, on the left-hand side of your screen, you're going to see where the bridges divide. So you're going to have Old Bridge Street and you're going to have Marine. That goes to the first corner. And then when you come to the right-hand side, that's going to take you down to where Starbucks is at. That's going to give you that area. If you come down to the bottom right corner, we're going to bring this area. What we're asking is actually to extend that green area all the way to the bypass. Our thought is the bypass, as you come off, really gives you the opportunity to see downtown Jacksonville first. That's your impact. So when you come off the bypass, you're going to see the gardens to your left, and then you're going to come into downtown. You're going to see the fountain, and you're going to hit New Bridge. That's the concept. And then down on the bottom, you're going to be at Sturgeon City, so another partner program. And that inside the green is going to entail everything else that's inside our downtown, which includes Riverwalk and Joed and all of the New Bridge and Court Street. So the first question is, are you good with this area? And then the subset question is, if so, are you good with us extending the green that's going to be in the bottom right corner to the bypass?
Yes.
And that would be our definition of downtown. If you don't have a problem with that, then we'll move forward. We clearly define that because when Joed implements it, anybody inside of this area would have access to these funds. If they're not in that area, that's the first parameter. Joe would say no.
Well, if we're going to extend it to the bypass, should we not include Bryn Mawr Shopping Center? That's right there on the edge of the green, because, I mean, there's a lot of retail and commercial spaces in there. You see how it bumps right up to the green line versus Glendale to the right? Am I looking at the right thing?
Oh, you're saying
The
keep
Bryn Mawr
going.
Shopping Center. I mean, if we're that close there on that one, and we're going to extend down there to where the bypass is, there's like no man land right in a second. I understand the new development, but we're that close. There's a big shopping center and a lot of possibilities to go in there, and it needs some work. And if we're ever going to do something in the town center, just thinking forward that direction, I know we have to stop at some point. I mean, that's my thought, is being that close.
And that's the only concern is where do we stop the line?
But you could
and how
stop
far
it
does
there,
go
right
back?
there at the housing, and say obviously nothing past the housing. Or you could just include just that shop, because that's really the only really commercial real estate in that area is just that Bryn Mawr Shopping Center.
I like the idea of including the gardens, the memorial gardens in that area. Just it gives another avenue for the museum to ask for additional funds from a different source. But
But, you know, when you think about coming off the bypass and going to the gardens or going to downtown, you'd like to have that area on the right-hand side tidied up a little bit.
I think of the Memorial Gardens area being as part of the downtown in my mind.
So how far would that go, like past Sonic?
It would go all the way up past the ATV, UTV
All those
business.
motorsports.
It would go to that corner. It would go right at the bypass exit ramp, on ramp.
If you go up that high, then you're almost choking off Brent Mawr, because Brent Mawr almost runs parallel. That side, that cut road right there at Lejeune runs right into Brent Mawr Shopping Center.
And does it change the integrity of what you want to have visually and otherwise considered downtown? Because how far do you go down Lejeune Boulevard? And you know, is it, and then you're gonna have questions of, well, why'd you stop at that intersection? I'm just across the street. And I mean, you know, it's just, once you
that's
start down
part of
that
our-
strip, you know,
That's part of our dialogue.
Yeah.
is-
But, you know, the waterways have made some natural breaks.
sure.
Well, everything like south, I think, I mean, I don't think there's any fighting any of that stuff. It was more, like you said, where the cutoff. And I think the bridge up there where the Starbucks, that little triangle, whatever you're gonna call it, that's a good break there. I think the hardest part is the side to the right.
I'm having trouble seeing New River, not New River, you're saying Bryn Mawr Shopping Center. Where's Bryn Mawr
You
Shopping
were
Center?
just at Glendale, right there to the right.
I think he means you River Shop.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I'm glad somebody was paying, that's what I meant the whole time, sorry.
New River, okay, all right. I can
Right there. Target.
I'm having trouble with
Target,
Bryn
New
Mawr.
River.
I'm making up names.
Yeah.
He just moved here.
I'd rather see
I knew where
us,
you were talking.
Thank you.
I'd rather see us take the New River Shopping Center and the housing as a separate entity. That's got its own issues.
Yeah.
So I'd rather keep that separate. But I do think the Memorial Gardens, to me, are part of the downtown. We have our flags set up over here to kind of help make that tie between the Memorial Gardens and our fountain. So I think that's.
The gardens are a critical part of our downtown redevelopment, for sure. The Carolina Museum of the Marine is going to be a big part of that. When we talk about Sturgeon City, we speak of that as being a huge part of our downtown atmosphere. Court Street, coming all the way down, is part of that dialogue too. Plus, it takes us down to the water. You know, that's how we get to the water.
So the water gives us some good breaks, and you can see a creek coming down to Lejeune Boulevard there.
Yeah, it wasn't originally, the gardens wasn't originally downtown, but the bypass
Right, has
kind of broke it off.
Yeah.
Cut it off, and
Yeah.
if you don't include it, it's in a no man's land, but it is part of it because we're trying to make that connection all the way through.
You know, the Zum Museum, the Museum of the Marine, that's all part of the downtown draw as we look forward.
Well, and it's very visually connected to the flags down the center of the Freedom Fountain as well. We've kind of bridged that already.
Again, this is the focus on downtown redevelopment. You know, if we're successful with this fund, then you can identify other areas that you want to, say, invest in.
We're on hold for New River anyway for a while.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so that
Makes sense.
sounds like we're good to extend it.
I mean, downtown's what we've been working on for the last 30 some odd years and still haven't made as much headway as we should. You know, so concentrating on this area here, I think brings a little bit more, I don't know, a little more substance to down there. I mean, you've got a lot of opportunity for business to locate down there.
These corners are great, like you were saying, having the split and then having Cheney and Marine, having that area, Starbucks and the work that Bailey's doing there on that corner. I think it's real exciting to where we're at. Mayor, this leads us to the second and the last question here for this agreement. So the way we have it now, once those funds are repaid now, then the dollars that are repaid after the first cycle, the interest payments would go back into the overall Joed business revolving loan fund. What our question is, and based on our previous comments from council, is do we want to keep those funds inside of our downtown Jacksonville revolving loan? Do we want this to be restricted? When initially we put it out to Joed, our comment was, we're thinking about this first round, we're not thinking about re-energizing it. And so when we put this out there, then the comment was those funds returned back to Joe Ed's fund. Would you like to see those funds stay inside of our revolving loan fund? Or do you want them to go into Joe Ed? And I think from our last discussion, what I heard was you would want them to stay within the Jacksonville downtown
Absolutely.
revolving loan fund for now.
Yeah. We're going to be several years helping to re-energize, and we're going to need every available dollar we can get.
I read this whole agreement. That was the only section I flagged for asking that question because I saw that it rolled right out, was no longer program funds. I think it'd be better for it to stay, if it's an investment from the city, then it's better for it to stay in the city.
And staff, that's exactly where we're at. We just, when we sent that first draft out, we didn't clarify that, and then we had the last discussion, and we should bring that back. So if you're good with that, Mayor, then what we'll do is we'll change those two areas, and our goal is to bring this back for consideration at the next council meeting so that you can consider that document.
Refer to my council members here. Everybody okay with that?
Yeah.
With the changes, yes.
Yeah, we're very excited. Like I said, this program partnered with the new partnership with Genesis Block. I think it's going to give us some of that direct impact that we're hoping to see. And then as soon as we unveil these awesome improvements downtown, Mayor, we're excited to make it happen. We hope to have this ready for you by the 18th meeting.
Very good.
Thanks, sir.
All right, next we have the item number 9, the FY 26 solid waste fee schedule.
Good evening, Mayor. We're talking about the solid waste fee schedule. Some of what we do is the residential solid waste, recycle vegetation, yard waste, small business waste recycle. Obviously, the commercial dumpster is a huge part of what we do for fund revenue and things like that, and supporting of the commercial businesses within the city. As you know, the commercial service is full enterprise, self-supported. Right now, residential is not self-supported. We usually take a general fund transfer. Excuse me. Typically, or in this FY, it's projected to be around 1.4 million, or at least that's what was budgeted. Part of the goal is going to be to eliminate the need for the general fund transfer that we've traditionally done, and we've taken several steps towards that the last few years. This FY, upcoming at FY 26, projected to be around 250K as a result of the fee changes we made last year and years prior, as well as other fees to include the dumpster rental, things like that we talked about last year, and the elimination of the addition of yard waste fees for bag yard waste. This screen here is just a recap of what we adopted last year and added to our fee schedule. So we went from $16 to the $20, and we did not increase the disposal fee or anything like that. That applied to residential and small business, and we added the additional container trash can by $1 up to $6. And then we implemented the commercial response fee for $25. And just to refresh your council's memory, that was when we got a call for service specifically on the commercial side to whether it's a new business that needed their dumpsters delivered. We show up to deliver it at the time they scheduled. They've still got construction materials in the corral or truck blocking it, and as we talked last year, that's manpower wasted as well as equipment and stuff like that. We added the 200-gallon yard waste stuff and then $3 per bag after that. Not mentioned here is also we started renting the yard waste can at $3 as well. So far, we're up to around 400, a little over 400 yard waste cans that are being rented. And we also sort of adopted a 2-year revenue collection schedule for recouping our funds for the purchase price of the dumpsters, to recoup our funds over 2 years. And those prices, as we talked last year, had steadily increased due to steel prices, shipping prices, and things like that. We did increase the fee for the 2-yard dumpster because based off that model, the 2-yard fee was already where it needed to be at. So we only increased the 4, 6, and 8 yard. So this year, what we're asking for is to continue with that, and hopefully this should be the last year of that $4 increase on the residential collection as well as the small business. And last year, the 8 yard rental, if you remember, it was 45, and to do the 24-month plan that we talked about previously, it was going to be $70. We didn't want to do a $25 jump in one fiscal year, so we cut it off at 60. So we're just asking for the other 10 here to again go back to that 24-month model. Some new fees in here that you're going to see. So the commercial pallet collection traditionally has not been as burdensome as it has been the last year. This is all obviously on the commercial side, but we've been getting a lot of calls to collect pallets, and there's nowhere on the fee schedule for that right now for pallets. We pay a fee at the landfill when they charge it. Right now, they're not charging it, but they could. But in addition to that, the manpower to manually pick those pallets up, because we can't always get a boom truck in there to pick them up, depending on the parking lot size and things like that. But then when we go to the landfill, we have to separate the pallets based off the painted ones and the non-painted ones. So again, it's just a labor-intensive process to do it. And we collect it because, our number one goal is to see trash, get trash, and that's what I preach to the guys. So we'd ask you to take a look at that. A new one as well is commercial yard waste. Again, there's nowhere in the fee schedule for yard waste for commercial. Occasionally, for some of the small businesses and hotels, other things, they'll set out bagged yard waste for us to collect. And currently, right now, under the FY25 fee schedule, there's no fee associated that we can bill for that. So we'd ask you to consider that. And then the last one here is the container truck fee. Our container truck is our dumpster delivery truck. And we use that when we do corral cleanouts. And I'm not asking to charge that fee when we pull a dumpster out to do the corral, because we're already charging the $150 for the corral cleanout. This is for when we have to use the container truck, generally speaking, at a request of the business owner. Either they want to clean out their dumpster corral pad, like Plaza Manor is a good example. They've got 6 to 8 dumpsters in there, and good on them for wanting to clean that out. But that's time that truck is not being utilized somewhere else, and again, time and equipment and manpower associated with doing that. So we're just asking to consider the container truck fee of $40 for when we have to utilize that truck.
Have our landfill fees gone up significantly?
No, they have not. They have not, Mayor. Right now, we're currently paying $57 a ton for our trash, our solid waste, sir.
No indication what the county's going to do this next year?
No, I reached out to the landfill director. I'm in constant contact with him. He has no indication that the landfill fee is going to go up at all. Everything else is still the same, what we're paying for yard waste and things like that, so.
I thought we talked last time, did we compare to what, people pay out in the county as far as,
Yeah, so, yes, sir. So, again, if I meant to mention that. So last year when we presented to you, we pulled up a city of Jacksonville employee that lives in the county that pays. He was paying roughly a little over $62 for a once-a-week trash and every other week recycle. And so with the new $4 increase, we're still only going to be at $30 for trash, recycle, bulk pickup, yard waste, all the other ancillary services that we provide. So they're still getting a huge bang for their buck within the city. Same thing on the dumpster rental. We showed the bill last year. A business that has switched to us. We were still servicing it. Nothing changed there. Just switching to us for the rental saved them. I think it was $350 to $400. So we're still significantly under what other companies are charging. And so I think part of the reason why some of the national companies don't have us is they have a third-party vendor that manages all their sanitation for them. So they have a contract with whatever dumpster provider. So the manager of that store or the franchisee that owns it would love to switch and save that money, but they have contracts with a nationwide dumpster provider. So any more questions on this one before I go to the next slide? All right. So in addition, one thing we're going to do this year, and the dates for that, we're going to do a spring fall cleanup. The dates for this one, we're going to release and put it out on social media. I'm going to get with Lisa Miller probably tomorrow. It's going to be April 2nd and April 9th, and the way that's going to work is, we pick up trash Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday, Friday. So what we're going to do is April 2nd is going to be the Monday, Thursday route. will get an additional $200, 200 gallons, so up to 400 gallons of the bagged yard waste on that Wednesday. Then the following Wednesday, Tuesday, Friday, people will get the same deal, the 400 gallons for free. And then anything over that, we'll charge them the $3. So that'll give them 12 bags, 12 of the yard waste bags at no charge for that week. And we'll do the same thing in the spring. We're looking at probably in the spring, or I'm sorry, the fall timeframe, with all the holidays that we get in November and things like that. We're probably looking at the last Wednesday in October, right before Halloween, and then that first Wednesday in November. And we'll do the same schedule because our Monday route, our Tuesday route, Monday is Northwoods and Tuesday is Brymore. That's our biggest culprits of yard waste. So we're going to try to split the burden up over a 2-week period. So
Is that just bagged and canned, or is it piles?
no, we didn't discuss doing anything with the loose limb pile because they're already getting the one free cord as it is for the 4x4x8. But it's certainly something we can entertain if council wants that.
Yeah. I just wouldn't want somebody to think they had free hand to put out
Anything?
a ton of stuff loose like that.
Right, no. So we would be pretty explicit in our messaging that we send out there that the same 4x4x8 does not go unchanged. It's just strictly the 200 gallon bag, yard waste, pine straw, things like that would go up to 400
Please
gallons.
stay on top of her and puts out some information on that, because you know what will happen.
Yes, sir. We'll obviously put it on our website and things like that, and try to get with billing and put it in the bill. All those, try to hit it from every angle.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mayor, like Tony was saying, that this will be into the fee schedule, it'll be in the budget, and it'll also have a white paper, because we'll hit it again as a final presentation to council. That way, if you have any concerns, or if we get any type of concern back from citizens during our public comment section, if we put it in as a white paper, that gives a highlight so that people are aware. We want to bring attention to these items. This is now twice that we've talked about it since last year to council, and this is all work. The items that you've looked at tonight, this is all part of our budget process. So we appreciate being able to review the items with council as we're going through the year, instead of just throwing them all at May, June, July to try and make decisions on how we move forward.
One city.
I do have 2 One City moments, Mayor, if I may. The first one comes for this week is Severe Weather Preparedness Week in North Carolina. And so the first picture here, you're going to see our street crews are out. This was during the February 19th weather event. So you see our crews out and about. They are working to clean up the roadways. One of the things that we want to say, and part of what Tony's talking about, is being able to clean up around your property to get weather prepared. The goal is you don't have things that are loose whenever high winds are going to come, whenever freezing is going to happen. Then you get ahead of it so that this doesn't impact your house, your property, or anybody that you know. And so our crews are out and about doing the work. This is not something that they typically do. So to be out, to have the equipment that they need to do the job, to have the skills that they need, and to have the manpower is a big deal. It's good to see us out there trying to clear roadways. Anytime during these events, if you have any concerns, then people need to call into 911 to give us that information. But during this week, we send those messages out so we can educate our citizens to be prepared for anything that could happen, because we learned if it could happen, it may happen here. The other thing is, before our last meeting, we did have the Jacksonville Board of Realtors. They presented a check to the mayor before the council meeting in the amount of $7,000. The best part about this is these funds will be used to provide funds into our neighborhood improvement services program. What happens here is we have certain restrictions on the funds that come in through CDBG, through HUD, and through NIS. When we have a funder that wants to provide these funds, that gives us free use. So they may not have some of those restrictions. We're able to take the dollars from the Board of Realtors and put them right into, in this instance, it's directly to a homeowner who needs some much needed repairs to their house. They were restricted, they didn't have that access. Board of Realtors stepped up and said, we'd love to be a partner, and they stepped in because they are a partner agency to what we're working on now in multiple projects. So they came before the meeting, they followed those guidelines. They didn't bring a big massive paper check. Unfortunately, they just brought cash and handed that over to the mayor. I don't know where that went, but probably, I know, we'll get it audited next year. But very excited to have more partners. What we're seeing is more partners in the community ready and willing to step up and help us to serve the mission of serving 72,000 people. So thanks for making that happen, and Mayor, thanks for being there.
With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. Second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
We need to use some of that.